Hi, my name is Lisa, and you won't believe the amazing and super creepy power I have. I can actually read people's minds. Yes, it's both as awesome and scary as you might imagine. I bet you don't really believe what I'm telling you, and that's all right. I mean, I wouldn't believe it if someone else said that they had some kind of superpower, so I can't really blame you. But trust me, this thing that's happening to me, it's 100% real, and it's not as cool as you might think it is. Let me tell you how I began reading people's minds and how I began hearing all kinds of thoughts. I'm 21 years old and still in college. I'll be graduating this year if everything goes right. To celebrate my birthday, my parents decided to treat me with a skiing trip. Honestly, I was so excited. I didn't see mom and dad as often since I had left for college. Plus, when I was younger, I used to love skiing, and with my tight budget, it had become a luxury I couldn't really afford. So when they showed me the plane tickets and the hotel they had booked, I was so happy. I think I must have thanked them 100 times. My mom and dad were so glad that I liked their gift, and they began preparing everything for our trip. They even bought me a few winter outfits so I could really enjoy the experience to the max. It was really awesome, and I was so grateful. At first, everything went well. The plane trip was awesome, and we didn't have any trouble with our seats. Plus, I got a little extra something with my lunch since it was my birthday. The stewardesses were super nice to me, and I got to talk with mom and dad a lot. We had only been Skyping, and I had been super busy with exams and projects, so they had missed out on so many important things in my life. I let them know that there was a guy I was beginning to date, and I really liked him. Perhaps soon I would convince him to meet them. I hoped that by the holiday season we had already officially become a couple. If that was the case, then I planned on taking him home for Christmas. But we weren't at that stage yet. My mom and dad also asked a lot of questions about my grades and my scholarship. They always were so proud of me for getting a full ride. When we arrived at the hotel, I fell in love with my room at once. It was amazing and so beautiful. I unpacked and changed into one of my new winter outfits and rushed outside to meet my parents. We went out to lunch and then went skiing. It was so much fun. Everything continued to be equally as perfect during the following day, but then on the third day of our family trip, everything went wrong. I was having fun doing a few risky maneuvers while going down the steep slope. Usually, I could handle myself with ease on skis since I had been practicing the sport regularly ever since I was a little kid. That day, though, I got distracted with a few teenagers going too fast, and I took a sharp turn to the left. That was when I bumped against a rock on the side of the path and was sent flying in the air. I fell forward, hitting my head hard. Everything went black, and I can't remember a single thing about what happened next until I woke up in a hospital bed. Everything hurt so much, not just my head. It seemed like the whole room was spinning for a moment until I could settle my eyes on a single spot. I began hearing odd sounds around me, like some kind of weird static. It quickly went away, though. I was so confused and had a massive headache. My mom was sitting by my side and jumped to her feet the second I opened my eyes. She grabbed my hand and I tried to speak, but I felt too weak. Then she said something to me, even if she wasn't moving her lips. She said she was so relieved I had finally woken up because she couldn't imagine losing her darling daughter so soon. Then she opened her mouth and asked me if I was okay, if I could speak. I weakly replied that I was dizzy and my head hurt. She explained that I had been in an accident and that I should try to relax. The doctors recommended I didn't try to speak too much, at least not at first. Dad and one of my doctors walked inside the room a few minutes later, and the physician began examining me. He asked me a few questions I had to answer, nodding or shaking my head to keep myself from speaking unnecessarily. While he was examining my eyes, he said something without even opening his mouth, just like my mom did a few moments before. I was so confused. Was I so dizzy that I didn't see them open their mouths? He said that if I hadn't been wearing my helmet, I would be dead for sure, or at the very best on the operating table. I began crying, and my parents tenderly soothed me. Now, this kept on happening. People said things without opening their mouths, and little by little, I began realizing they weren't speaking at all. I mean, Mom began talking about what she would buy me to make me feel better, and that perhaps it would be a good idea to throw me a surprise birthday party when we went back home to make up for all this mess during our trip. Of course, she wasn't going to be saying that to me out loud. At first, I really did think that I was losing my mind. Perhaps the bump on my head had just rattled something up inside me and I was beginning to go crazy. I wasn't sure if perhaps, just perhaps, I wasn't going mad, but I had really managed to read my mom's mind. So I tentatively asked her if she was planning a surprise party for me, and she gave me the most shocked look I'd ever seen. She was too surprised to lie to me, and so she told me that she was, and how did I know? I told my mom that she had this look on her face like she was planning something fun, and I came to that conclusion since it had been my birthday a few days ago and she liked to pamper me. It was a lie, of course, but I couldn't tell her that I had heard her say that without even moving her lips. That's when I realized that the bump on my head had activated something in my brain. I didn't fully understand it at first, and I certainly didn't know how to use it right. The moment I was released from the hospital, I began experimenting with my newfound power. I knew that if I didn't find a way of stopping the voices from flooding my head, I would end up going crazy for sure. I focused on certain people and could block their thoughts or hear them louder. At first, it was hard doing this, and I kept hearing voices around me. Bit by bit, though, I trained myself to block it out most of the time. The problem was, people are nasty inside their heads. Really, you wouldn't even imagine it, even if I tried to explain it to you. People can be super mean and dirty when they think that no one can hear them. I've heard guys imagine the most horrible things when they see a girl they like, and there are really mean people thinking hideous stuff about those around them. If you believe your friends like you, I can tell you that most of the time, when I listen in to thoughts in a group of friends, most of what I hear would make a tough adult sob. Now, don't get me wrong, this power can be really useful. I know what people think about me at any given time. Sure, this can be a bit awkward from time to time, but I always know who's trying to betray me and who really cares about me. I also know how to reply to just about any social interaction without any problems. I know the intention of anyone who approaches me. My mom and dad are really proud of me, though they don't really like the major I decided on. My mother also kind of worries that I'm not going to give her grandchildren till she's super old, and I find this both hilarious and kind of sad. Dad has super nasty thoughts about my mom when she wears tight dresses, and that's awful to know. I learned how to block his thoughts so fast when I began hearing what he was imagining doing to her. That's not something a daughter needs to know, but I'm still happy that Dad really does love my mom so much. I'll admit something to you, I've been doing far better at college since I bumped my head in that skiing accident. I know I shouldn't be cheating, but it's hard to avoid the temptation of peeking into my teacher's head, you know? All the answers are in there, and it's even easier if the exam is oral. She's thinking of what I should say while I speak, so I can just kind of follow whatever is in their minds. I've always been a good student, but now I impress even the toughest teachers. Is it wrong to be using my powers to get an unfair advantage? Perhaps, but it's not really going to harm anyone, you know? I still study hard and take my future career super seriously. The problem is, sometimes people's thoughts are super hard to ignore. I can usually block out anything I don't want to hear, but that's not always the case. You see, when someone focuses on something too much, it's like they are screaming. Naturally, someone yelling is harder to ignore than someone who's speaking or whispering. The same applies to thoughts, and guys who are dirty, well, it's impossible to ignore what's in their minds. When a guy has a really nasty thought about a pretty girl, be it me or any other woman around us, I can't help but hear it. And believe me, I don't want to know what some weirdo thinks about me, at least not with that level of detail. So going out dancing with my friends is no longer fun. I used to wear tight dresses and use lots of makeup when I'm out having a fun time, but I just hate the things guys think about me when I do that. They call me such nasty words in their heads like I'm trying to lure them in. I just like dressing nicely. Plus, what's wrong with wanting to look beautiful? Guys go into the nastiest and detailed fantasies when staring at a woman they fancy. It's also so hard to ignore because they are really focused on that daydream, so I have to be there and listen to it all, even over the loud music. I have tried so hard to block it, but the problem is that when I get stressed out, my power sometimes gets a bit out of control. Then I begin hearing more and more around me and end up with a terrible headache. So I've decided it's not worth it, at least not until I learn to better control my powers. Now, on the good side, I learned something amazing thanks to my mind-reading abilities. Remember the guy I was dating? He wanted to be my official boyfriend, but was worried I wasn't so into him. That was how I managed to finally get him to understand that I was crazy about him. I'm taking him home for the holidays to meet my parents, just like I promised my mom. Just a recommendation to any guy watching: when you see a girl you like, don't be so nasty about the things you think about her. You never know who might be listening in. I might not be the only one with these powers. I haven't found anyone like me so far, but I know there must be others out there. Thanks for watching. What superpower would you choose if you could only have one? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to check out other videos on the channel and subscribe.